Good morning to everyone on the line with us today. I appreciate that. We're excited to have you join us today. This session is for you, all of our key support liaisons, and we want it to be engaging and interactive. This is an opportunity for you to engage with our experts and to get your questions answered about emergency preparedness and crisis management. My name's Letitia Crea, and I work at Headquarters Air Force in the Airmen and Family Care Division, and I will be your MC for today's event. Our theme for today is Get Ready, Achieving Family Readiness Through Emergency Preparedness and Crisis Management. As natural disasters are seeming to happen more frequently, and even right now as we speak, there are those of us who are still recovering from the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl, and some who are recovering from wildfires in the western states. And then there are the man made crises that are happening all across the globe. And our goal today is to equip you with information and resources that will assist you and the airmen, guardians, and families you serve to stay prepared and be ready for the unexpected. I'm excited because today we've assembled experts from several different areas of emergency response and crisis management to be with us and provide tools from across the spectrum of this topic. But before we get to our experts, we will have remarks from an honored guest, the spouse of General David W. Albin, Chief of Staff of the Air Force, Mrs. Gina Albin. Mrs. Albin?
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Like I said in the chat, I don't know, everyone's all over the world, wherever you're at listening in. So glad that you all could join us. I know there was a big pause in between having our online sessions for this program, but the team has been working on, well, you were all very patient with the name change and changing all those things, but they've been working really hard to make some slight adjustments to the program and just to update it some, right? And some of you are new, some of you have been doing this for years, and we appreciate both of you so much for stepping up and being part of this and being part of our community. I mean, that's truly what it is. You're being another touch point for our community to come together and to support each other. So I was actually, my husband, no, Dave came in last night as this was playing when we did this yesterday, and he was able to listen in, and he's like, this is right on point of a lot of things that we need to think about. So just know, all of you who presented yesterday, he got to hear you, and we were, thumbs upping each other the whole time. And well, we can talk. We were muted. So we were doing all those. But just wanted to say thank you so much for coming together. The team at the Pentagon's been working really, really hard, trying to get a really focused look at some things and redoing the curriculum and working on the rebrand just a little bit. And because the mission really hasn't changed, we're just kind of how we're focusing just a tad bit. So thank you so much for coming in. Congratulations to the team at the Pentagon who've been working so hard. We really appreciate it, Mr. Larry's team and everyone. Thank you so, so much. Again, I'll be on the fly on the wall a little bit during this meeting. I've got a few things happening this morning, so I'll be in and out, but I'll still be listening. So thank you so much, and you all have a great day, and I'm really looking forward. I hope you really enjoy what they're presenting to you today, because I think it's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Alvin, for your remarks and for taking the time to highlight the importance of the Commander's Key Support Program and the impact of our Key Support Liaisons. Okay, it's time to get started. The Air Force Personnel Center at afpc.af.mil is the treasure trove of information for this event and all things Key Support Liaison related. The actual link has been shared with you in the chat. And for those on the phone, it's easy to find by simply Googling AFPC Commander's Key Support Program. Next week, we will post the recording of this event, slides, and questions and answers. We'll also send you an email to the account with which you registered to let you know that it's been posted. Our agenda for today begins with our subject matter expert panel. Our panelists will provide you a brief overview of their area of expertise. Then we will kick it off with a couple of questions that were sent in ahead of time, followed by an open question answer period where you will have the opportunity to ask questions directly of the panel. After questions and answers, we will have a 10-minute break, and then we'll pick back up with closing remarks from our panelists and final remarks. At the end, we also will provide you a link to give us feedback on today's event. Our panel today features experts from organizations that operate in the emergency response and crisis management space. You can find their bios by clicking the link in the chat or by going to the treasure trove at the AFPC Commander's Key Support Program website that I mentioned earlier. Before we get into our questions, I'm going to ask our panelists to come on camera so we can do a round of introductions. I'm going to ask each panelist in 3 minutes or less to please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your current role as it relates to emergency preparedness and crisis management. Chief Jameson, please start us off.
Hey, well, good morning, afternoon, evening, to wherever you are. Chief Master Sergeant Sean Jameson, currently working the Deputy Chief Staff of Logistics, Engineering, and Force Protection. So over at the Director of Civil Engineers, I am the Career Field Manager for Emergency Management in the Air Force. So myself and also the 2,100 total force emergency managers that we have, civilians, enlisted, officer, are pretty much stationed everywhere in the world. So you'll have an installation office of emergency management there with you wherever you are. A couple of things, about that, and just to underscore what Ms. Alvin said, that everything that we do in emergency management, whether that's planning, mitigation, preparedness, response, or recovery, it doesn't happen without a whole of base effort for recovery. And no matter what it is, like if it's a man-made disaster or if it's a natural disaster, technological hazard, we need everybody to get after it. So we do that through a number of different ways. One of those is like this, having a forum and having a network of interested folks to make sure that, that we're strong and reinforced as a community. So thank you, number one, for being a part of this. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here with you and to speak with you on this. And there's a couple of resources that we have as well to be able to help with that. One of those is is if you have an Apple phone or Android phone, there's the Be Ready application. If you go to the App Store, you can download Be Ready. That is the Air Force's app for, and it has information in there about whether it's a disaster and you want to know, for example, like what does it mean when there's an EF1 or EF5 tornado? What does that really mean? What about the Saffir-Simpson scale? It'll tell you about storm surge. And there's even helpful tips in there as well, like checklists, whether that's, getting your family ready, or even what does it mean for shelter in place or evacuation. There's a lot of information in there. And also our website, which is www.beready.af.mil, also has a lot of good information and resources in there for you as well. So again, happy to be here, happy to answer any questions that you have, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chief Jameson. Chaplain Lieutenant Colonel Dan Worf.
Boy, it's awesome to be with you guys this morning. I hope you're doing well, or afternoon. Super excited to join this session with you guys today. So I currently work here at the Pentagon for the Chief of Chaplains, Major General Kitchens, and he created a new role for the Chaplain Corps called Spiritual Fitness and Strategic Partnerships Manager. And so I have the privilege of stepping into that role as a Pathfinder. It's been a phenomenal year. I've been here about a year. I love what I do. And what do I do? Spiritual fitness. A lot of people ask me this. I love talking about this topic. So a couple of things really quick, just to familiarize yourself with what we do in the Chaplain Corps overall. So first off, our job is to kind of equip the Total Force Chaplain Corps to fortify airmen and guardian readiness through connection to hope and purpose, kind of before, during, and after the fight, as well as beyond their time in uniform. So that's number one, what we do. Second thing I do is oversee education and facilitate really a cross-functional effort on the who, what, when, where, and why of being spiritually fit as a member of the profession of arms. So that's a lot of fun. And then finally, to advise leaders on what makes airmen and guardians and families thrive, body, mind, and spirit. And that's the integrated resiliency connection that I have. So strategic partnerships, I have a fun job. I get to navigate across the SG world, A1Z world, anybody that's connected to Total Force or military family readiness. I get to partner and link arms with them. And so it's an honor to be here. A lot of people ask me, what is spiritual fitness? I love as far back as 2011, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs put out a definition. It's a phenomenal definition of spiritual fitness. It says it's basically the ability to hear beliefs, principles, or values needed to persevere and prevail in accomplishing the mission. And I can tell you, as a key support liaison, you have to have your own spirituality, whether you're religious or not, founded in solid understandings of your beliefs, your purpose, your values, and your principles. And so we're here to champion that for you and help connect you to those resources across the enterprise that are here to support you and your families. And so throughout today, look forward to this panel discussion. Look forward to sharing some new initiatives that we have going on around spiritual fitness. We've recently launched a new commander and senior enlisted leader orientation toolkit for all the leaders out there to understand, hey, what is the role of the chaplain? What do they do with their RST partner, a religious affairs airman? And so I can't wait to talk to you guys, answer your questions, and be here today. Thank you so much for the invitation. And we look forward to the next hour and a half with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaplain Worf. Mr. Nate Hudson.
Thank you. Good day, all. I know we're in different time zones, so good day. And I would like to first thank you for giving me the opportunity and giving us the opportunity to address you today. I know that KSLs or Key Support Liaisons are pretty critical to our mission. We consider y'all mission partners for us because you are that liaison with our function and getting the information and services and capability of the military and family readiness community and staff getting our support out to your military communities. You are that communication that we need to make sure that folks are resilient, families, service members are resilient and able to respond and recover from those significant events that affect them during the military life cycle or during severe events or all hazard events, as we call it. I'm at AFPC, Air Force Personnel Center, under the leadership of General O'Donnell and Miss Tony. And I'm in the Airmen and Family Care Directorate, Airmen and Family Readiness Operations Division. Within our program, my primary responsibility is program manager for Crisis Support Program. And many of you have volunteered and worked with us in the Emergency Family Assistance Center, which we provide operational oversight for. And that is that EFAC, as we call it, which is to provide you when you get an emergency, a contingency, disaster or crisis, or even evacuation, where leadership will activate an Emergency Family Assistance Center to provide you support, to be that hub where all those helping agencies come together and be able to provide services and support to help you recover that significant event. We've had a lot in the past. I know our connection with those agencies at the federal, state, local level has provided services and support to you. I know an example with Air Force Aid Society. I know in 2023, they gave approximately about $1.6 million in disaster support. And we are in liaison with those other agencies such as FEMA, who has certain crisis support, financial support and services that can provide you assistance to help you recover, and to include the American Red Cross. Also provide support and manages the needs assessment portion of AFPAS, Air Force Personnel Accountability and Assessment System. I know you're going to get some additional information from Ms. Goodman on that, but there's a module within there where you are able to go in after a significant event, weather event or another event that's affecting your life, that earthquake, disaster, or crisis. You can go in that AFPAS and access the needs assessment and communicate to us your most urgent need. Within the field, we have over 800 case managers that are able to reach out to you, conduct outreach to make sure that you are getting your issue addressed after these events have occurred to you, family, and your family. So just keep in mind that when you do submit those needs assessments, communications, it comes to our desk up here in AFPC and Airmen and Family Operations. And we're making sure within 24 to 48 hours that we're getting the information to the case managers to help you recover from that event. So again, it's a pleasure to talk with you. And again, I appreciate what you do for us as far as being that liaison to the community for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Miss Sonia Goodman.
Good morning. I am so happy to be here with you guys this morning. This is a wonderful forum. I am so thrilled to be here. I hope that we can answer most of your questions. I work at AFPC, and I am with the Fourth Generations Readiness Branch under the supervision and direction of Mr. Edsel Walker. Okay, there it is. She just gave me access. Okay, so I'm sorry for that little hiccup. But I work with the Air Force Personnel Accountability Assessment System, and me and Miss Yolanda Phelps, we manage the program for the total force of airmen and Space Force guardians and their family members. And what this program does, during a natural or man-made disaster, we are responsible for the accountability for all of the service members and their family members that are in that geographical area of interest. This program tells us who, where, and how. Tell us who you are, where you are, and how we can help you. The how we can help you comes in again with Mr. Nate Hudson at Military Family and Readiness. That's where you would do your assessments. The accountability action is governed by the DoD 3001.2 and is mandated by them that we do an exercise twice a year with all service members. The DoD at this time is currently being rewritten to mandate that all DoD agencies use AFPAS for accountability. Use not AFPAS, but use the PASS system. Let me regenerate PASS, which is Personnel Accountability and Assessment System, because we have an Air Force, we have a Navy, we have an Army, and we have a Coast Guard, and we also have the Fourth Estates, which falls under the agencies like DECA and so forth that currently use AFPAS. The only one that's not currently using AFPAS that is using their online accountability system, which is the Marines. But with this DoD rewrite, they will be mandated to use the PASS system as well. We get our information from DMDC, from PARS, which is the Personnel Accounting Reporting System. That gives us all of the information on the military members. We get an update once a month from DEERS as well. So with this information, I hope that I can answer questions that you have or concerns that you have about AFPAS and help you to be able to use this system effectively. We have a mobile app, which you can use on your phone, tablet, your PC. And we also have a new system, which is called Alert. It's the alert system is a two-way messaging system, which we ask you a question. If you are in the geographical area, you would respond with the answer from 1 through 6. That response will go directly to AFPAS and update the system for you. So if you have any questions, again, I am here to help you understand and use AFPAS effectively and efficiently. So please, I am thrilled to be here. This is a wonderful forum, and anything that I can do to help to make this process much easier, me and Ms. Phelps are always there for you.
Thank you, Ms. Goodman. Mr. Brian Angel.
Good morning, all. Brian Angel. I'm the branch chief for casualty operations here at AFPC as well, working with Mr. Hudson in the same directorate, but in the casualty matters division here at Air Force Personnel Center in Joint Base San Antonio. Thank you all for what you do. As proactive duty service, also current reservist, just finished up a 3-year gig as a squadron commander myself. So what you do as a KSL is definitely a beneficial to all of us and a force multiplier. So thank you for being on with us today and for being with the panel. Hopefully be able to answer your questions. I was going to go through really quick, like on casualty matters. Could talk all day about it. I've been doing this for about 6 years now. I was the former Miss Goodman, so I'm very appreciative of what they're doing with AFPAS as well. As her and Mr. Hudson taking that on and what we're doing across the Air Force. But we do not do casualties within AFPAS. So we have our own system that goes all the way up to the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Air Force, across all the services, and our casualty processing system, DSIPs, that we have to use to do casualty reporting and track all of our benefits and entitlements. Now, 2 key things that we have for your readiness and awareness today. is VRED, the Virtual Record of Emergency Data, and also SOS, the SGLI, Service Members Group Life Insurance Online Enrollment System. Those are two big things that squadron commanders now have as a compliance checklist at every year that we're to ensure our airmen and guardians go in at least once a year, if not real time, to make updates to those documents. Your VRED, your emergency data, is also what goes along from the DoD. It's called the DD Form 93 Emergency Record. And on that, not only do you annotate who you want to be notified in a crisis, whether it's an emergency, but also obviously with a casualty. And remember, many folks usually think about casualties as a deceased, but there's also 6 other categories to include wounded, ill, and injured, missing, and DUS1, DSATs, whereabouts unknown, that we track as casualties and reportable all the way up. So on the emergency data, you're going to designate not only the emergency context, but you're also going to designate beneficiaries of certain things, such as death gratuity, which is $100,000 payable. There's also the arrears of pay, which is unpaid allowance, leave, a bonus, anything like that that's calculated since the last time the member was paid. And then finally, the PAD, the person authorized disposition of remains, that falls into the mortuary side of the house. But with that, that's essentially designating the person who's going to determine what happens to the remains of the airman or guardian, from cremation to a casket to funeral, memorials, etc. That's all designated on the VRED. On the SOS system, again, Service Members Group Life Line Enrollment System that was put out by the VA in 2017. As of March 2023, if you weren't aware, the SGLI now has gone up to a maximum of $500,000 in coverage. And along with that, you have your FSGLI, Family Service Members Group Life Insurance, which is $100,000 for a spouse, $10,000 for children. And then an additional piece under SGLI is the TSGLI, Traumatic Service Members Group Life Insurance. Now, on all of these documents and systems of records, unfortunately, in the past 6 years, a whopping 30% of the VREDs have some type of erroneous data on them. The SOs are not recertified annually, so we have to go back to a paper copy if there's nothing in those systems of records to the last certified signature of the airman or guardian and what they were designated for beneficiaries. And what that happens as a problem for us, if those things are not current or accurate, is it will delay in the notifications. We have a mandate to do a knock on the door, in-person notification for members that are deceased, missing, or DUS1 within 12 hours. If the members don't update that, then we've sent a notification team to 5 different addresses and just to notify one person. So that gets very problematic. Additionally, again, it's not having those beneficiaries as correct and accurate, then the monies will be dispersed to everyone. So if somebody was married, if somebody was divorced, if they had children, in the past, you used to be able to just designate just a spouse or a parent if the members were not married. That's the main things that the services would work with for these entitlements. But ever since the wars of Iraq and Afghanistan, that has now shifted and changed to where you can designate anybody to include drinking buddies, a best friend, a grandparent, an aunt, uncle, whoever by name, those beneficiaries can be alluded to. So again, I can talk all day long, but we appreciate what you're doing. Just know that these are important documents. Make sure that you're not in the middle of a crisis to know where those documents are, and to also have those discussions with the members and with their spouses to say, hey, this is my intentions. This is who I want to be entitled. This is who I want to be notified. And this is how we want the things to execute should anything occur to the airman or guardian. So look forward to your questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you to all of our panelists for your intros and taking the time to share your expertise with us. Now we're going to jump right into the questions. The first question is for Chaplain Worf. Chaplain, can you clarify from the lens of integrated resilience and spiritual fitness, what types of resources are available to military members and their families on a daily basis that can aid in emergency preparedness?
Yes, thanks for the great question. So, one of the greatest sources of strength to meet kind of the unique challenges of military life that comes to us all is our connection with others. And so as I think about our conversation today and our time with you across those different, components of comprehensive airman fitness or the spectrum of resilience, I want you to think about those connections. As a KSL, you are really a grassroots pulse of the force resource for your commander. But more importantly, you're also there to really kind of listen in and see what are the challenges or the quality of life issues that our airmen guardians and their families are dealing with at that level. And I can't tell you how important it is as you think about your role and the responsibilities that come with that. As you kind of advocate and listen, you are in a very critical position as we kind of pivot toward great power competition, as we think about near peer fights, as we think about natural disasters and those things that we could experience even this summer, as we kind of were reminded as we kick this off today, that you as a KSL are really the embodiment of kind of three things that I think of. You're the embodiment of community, connection, and care. So those three things I want you to think about is community, connection, and care, right? So we all deserve that and we want that in our culture. And you are a critical point of making that happen, right? So as you think about all the different resources that are available to you, the Air Force has a plethora of resources. I think though some of the challenges that I've experienced in my own life and the airmen that I've supported and served is just awareness of those resources, right? The lack of communication that can get kind of stuck in these silos within your unit, right? So your spouses, your families, they might feel a little disconnected from the mission. And so one of the key things that you're going to hear us all talk about is communication throughout this day. But I would say, think about the various resources that you have, right? So you have one, yourself, right? So you are a key resource yourself for airmen and family and guardians. But beyond that, within the chaplain corps lane, you have your chaplain corps team, right? So you should usually have an embedded chaplain or a religious affairs airman assigned to your unit or squadron. And those people, again, are extensions of kind of a pulse of the force asset for the commander at the wing and delta level, the group commander level. They're day in and day out, hopefully getting involved in the units, meeting, greeting people, spending time. They do counseling, which is absolute confidential counseling for them. But beyond that circle, you also have a whole bunch of resources at military and family readiness centers, right? So you'll hear our panel members talk about that. MFLACs, you have victim advocates, victim councils, because one of the things we know about life is that you're either going into a storm, you're in the middle of a storm, or you're just coming out of a storm. I know that's the truth for me. And now is the time for you to get ready. Whether you are in the middle of it, whether you're coming out of one, or you're just heading into one, one of the things I want you to think about is how can you be ready? How can you kind of fill your toolkit with the right resources so that you can be that key resource and really embody community connection and care and be that liaison to the different support entities that are there, right? And we can go and list a lot of those different support entities, and we'll hear that from the panel today. But I just want you to kind of think about those thoughts, your key role. And from a spiritual fitness lane, really what we're focused on is helping you and helping airmen connect to hope and purpose, beliefs, and values, right? So that's really important. When you get into a crisis, all the stuff that you think matter doesn't matter. And the things that really are important come back to your anchors, right? Your tie downs of life. What are the things that anchor you? What are the belief systems? What are your values? What are your principles? And I can tell you, as you go into and help educate and train those members in your peer support network, the spouses, the families, they're hungry for more of that. And that's one of the roles of the chaplain corps, is to come alongside you to work in an integrated resiliency community with A1, A1Z, SG, mental health, and really try to help set you up to thrive, but also military families to thrive both in the mind, body, and spirit domains. And so I've got some more resources to share later in our panel discussion, but those are my thoughts, and I hope they encourage you to remember your role, to embody the community connection and care aspects of what you do as a KSL. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaplain, for reminding us all the importance of community connection and care, how to connect with the resources at the wing and delta levels. And I think you also actually addressed some of the questions that were already dropped in the chat. So thank you so much for that. Our next question is for Ms. Goodman. And after this question, we're going to take some questions from the chat. Ms. Goodman, can you provide insights on how to best utilize AFPAS if the military member is deployed or TDY or remote and the family at home is affected by a natural disaster?
So the best way to utilize AFPAS if the family member has been deployed, and let's say, for instance, they do not know their sponsor's username and password, I would suggest that they get in contact with the unit, find out who their unit sponsor core is, and that's the core is the commanding officer representative. Every unit has at least one. So the unit sponsor will be their point of contact if they have no information. So they will contact the unit, ask the unit for their unit core. That unit core can take their accountability for him or her in the event that the member is not there. But we suggest that for every member that's getting deployed, that you get this information prior to the deployment so that you can do the accountability in the event that your spouse is deployed. But if you can't and you forgot and you don't have it, you can always get in contact with the unit to find out who the unit sponsor, who the unit core is, and they can do that update for you.
Thank you, Ms. Goodman. Do we have any questions from the chat?
Yes, we do. We have a question from Lynn Bailey. She's asking Ms. Goodman, are DoD civilians tracked in the AFPAS system?
Yes, ma'am, they are. DoD civilians, NAF employees, reservists, AGR and IMA, contractors overseas, and their family members are tracked in AFPAS.
Thank you. We have another question from Samantha Fritz. She's asking, do all branches use AFPAS or their own pass system?
They use PASS. AFPAS stands for Air Force. The Navy has NFAS for the Navy. CGPAS is for Coast Guard. ADPAS, ADPAAS is the Army. The only service that is currently not using PASS system is the Marines. They do accountability using Marines online. We are currently doing a DoD rewrite, which will mandate all services to use PASS system. So that means that the Marines will come online using the PASS system as well. It may be called impasse, we're not sure. But we are doing a rewrite mandating that everyone uses a form of the PASS system. Currently, the only one not using it is the Marines. All other services are using it.
Thank you. And another AFPAS question. Is AFPAS available to reservists and their family members in any status?
Yes, the reservists are in here. We do the total force, AGR, IMAs. We do the total force. That means we do the civilians, the NAF employees, any connectivity contractors overseas only. We do not do contractors in the state. They fall under whomever they're working for, but all others we track and their family members.
Thank you. We have a question from Sherry Hartman. Can the CAR discuss support benefits for families if they have experienced loss of a child before birth?
That is correct. So as I mentioned, the Family Service Manager Group Life Insurance, FSGLI, for minors, it's automatic for anybody that has SGLI. That's a $10,000 coverage. And the casualty representatives at your base, the CAR, they are full-time civilians. This is their primary job. They're at all the installations, active duty installations that we have assigned. And we have 4 or 5 at some other various locations as well, satellites and reserve installations. But your CAR can sit down. They'll help do the claim for the FSGLI, and then also walk through other support avenues that they can give for assisting those members as they go through that casualty loss. There are certain things that have actually changed again from statute and law and mandates that actually defines whether it's a stillbirth or if there's a death certificate that goes along with the minor child after they were lost after birth or at any age as a minor, that FSGLI would be applicable for those cases, and the CAR would be your belly button to help with those cases. Over.
Thank you so much. All right, we have a question from Melissa Weeks. She's asking, what are some ways CKSL support can be a force multiplier for our unit in spiritual fitness, before an emergency should happen so we're mission ready?
Great question. So one of the things that we're currently working to release next month is a spiritual fitness quick start guide. And the focus and intent of that quick start guide, it's going to go on the Air Force Resiliency webpage. And it's going to be a really practical guide that helps help airmen develop their own spiritual fitness. And really the focus is on purpose, meaning, and values. So the idea is helping airmen understand what is their purpose in life, what are the beliefs and values that support that in their life. And these are kind of activities that the Key Commander Support Program and the KSLs, you guys can use those. They're very supportive of, again, religious and non-religious views, very respectful. They're very holistic in their approach. And so I think education is a good part of doing that, to say, hey, listen, we all have a spiritual aspect to our life. It's not something that we should be afraid of. It helps us in the great moments of our life when we face adversity. Those are the things that help us overcome. And I think as a prevention, one of the things that you can do is to help educate and share those types of resources. We also have the Commander Orientation Toolkit. That'll also be on the website, available for you here next month on the resiliency.af.mil website. So we're trying to get resources and tools out in the hands of people so that you can partner with your RST. But also, if you want to just take that on and say, hey, I want to champion that, we can do more with this area in this CAF domain. The other thing I want you to think of, and I didn't mention this yesterday, the Chaplain Corps last year launched a HOPE peer support program. It's called HOPE. And basically, these are peer-to-peer airmen who volunteer, kind of like a white rope from Lackland, in their unit to champion the spiritual component in their life. And so they partner a lot with other peer support networks within the unit. And those are resources that I think we have around 26 different installations currently that are launching a HOPE program. And those airmen are getting baseline training. They get an SEI that goes along with that. And so there's these resources that I think you can tap into, along with preparing and helping your spouses. And I think about a lot of the challenges that I've experienced or I've heard families experience with is families feel a bit disconnected from the mission. And I shared this the other day, that a really creative idea as a KSL that you can do to kind of help the spiritual component, but also from an integrated resiliency component, is to open up the aperture a little bit and share a little bit more with your families. What is the mission of your unit at the wing or delta or group level, and bring them in, have maybe a road show. A lot of wing and group commanders have honorary group and wing commanders. They bring them on the installation, they host, and they do a mission brief. And I can tell you that the units that I've been seeing do that with their spouses are really getting good feedback. They're helping prepare their spouses and their families to understand what is the mission. And then, no joke, if something happens, what are you going to do, right? How do we communicate? And I think last Friday was a good reminder of why we are having this conversation, right? So the biggest cybersecurity event in history happened with CrowdStrike. And I'm sure you guys have all heard that, right? It was one software push update that crashed millions of Microsoft and travel laptops around the world. And I can tell you from my perspective, my wife called me and she's like, I think we need to have a plan. I think we need to know how to connect because everything crashed on the computers. And it's just a great reminder that prevention is actually getting ready and being ready. And so great question. I know I shared a lot in that, so I'm going to come up for air. If there are other questions, love the questions and the dialogue. Thank you.
Yes, there is a follow-up question for you. What sort of training is there for the HOPE's peer support program? Is it only available at specific locations, or is it an opt-in for this trial program?
Yeah, so we're currently in IOC with FOC for the program to be June 2025. We have 26 installations currently where we have betas up and running. 5 of our locations have already actually graduated Hope peer-to-peer specialist. And there are 7 modules that we've created at the Air Force Chaplain Corps College that basically provide basic baseline training. So that would be religious accommodation, privileged communication, suicide prevention. Congress last year in the 2023 NDA gave the Chaplain Corps an authority to start leaning into suicide prevention. And so one of the things we've been doing is going and looking at and working with the DoD Suicide Prevention Office. We're also looking at off-the-shelf products like Safe Talk. So all of our peer specialists get Safe Talk certified as baseline training. So if you're connected to one of those installations, you should have a chapel team that has a HOPE program. If not, let me know, reach out to me, and I'll connect you and help support and answer any questions you have regarding the HOPE program. Also, just be on the lookout. HOPE is going to also be on the Air Force Resiliency website with links to all of the kinds of things you're asking for, products, connections, videos. So we're really excited about the future of what that offers the Airman Guardian and family community. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. This has been great. Keep the questions coming in the chat. Thank you all so much for the information you've provided so far. Our next question is going to be directed at Chief Jamison and Mr. Hudson. Is there anything specific and unique to overseas assignments with regard to emergency preparation?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I'm trying to come up on camera, but it says the host has disabled it. All right. Hey, I think I'm on now, perhaps, but yeah, that is a really good question. So, over in CONUS or Continental U.S., installations, and we all fall under the National Incident Management System. So, with that, a lot of the way that we, develop our programs, our plans, is all attached to local, state, and federal government responses. So that's all part of the National Response Framework and the National Disaster Recovery Framework. So all of that is it's really structured in how we do it. Now, in overseas locations, there are different nuances, right? So no matter which base you go to, there is a session called a Base Emergency Preparedness Orientation. That generally happens, over at your right start or intro briefs, or, when you first get there, where an emergency manager from that installation will come in to talk to you about things that are specific to that location. Things that are a little different is that instead of working with a county or parish emergency management agency to be able to make those plans happen, we end up working with the government right outside the installation. Usually, if that means that there's a language barrier, then there's translators there as well, and then the federal government, of course, also still is responsible to make sure that you're safe no matter where you are. So the Department of State, USAID, which is the U.S. Agency for International Development, are really big into making sure that disaster recovery and also you and the families are kept safe no matter where you are. Some different nuances, right, is that if you're at an overseas location, you might you get different things in that depot or that base emergency preparedness orientation. Some things may be a mask. They may give you a dependent mask if we're concerned, or we want to make sure that you and the family are safe. And we give you some respiratory protection just in case, so that you can get into a safe area. Shelter in place kits, and what we might put into there, whether that's a sheeting, plastic sheeting, or directing that we have some water, extra water supplies, first aid kits, all of those. It might be a little bit more structured. Depends on the threats and hazards that might be over at that installation. So very similar in our approach, but the nuances and differences of who we talk to and how we talk to them, are going to drive how we tackle that situation, no matter where you are. But the framework is tight. We have the Installation Office of Emergency Management. Again, it's like, on every installation where we have people. And, to couple with that, we also have unit emergency preparedness coordinators that are embedded in each one of the units. And so that's the liaison to our office, no matter where we are, so that they can build unit specific plans, that may be specific to how that unit is formed, organized, and who else is there, whether their mission is very, like unique in a certain way. So there's lots of those different things that makes it a little different, depends on where you are, but that's tailored based on the installation. Over.
Thank you,
Chief.
Chief.
And to caveat on that, I know when we're looking at overseas location, we have the evacuation piece. There's a lot of NEO, non-combatant evacuation operation considerations that have to be considered due to either severe weather events or crisis events, but also the civil unrest or situations like that that may occur that may need for non-combatants to evacuate. I know the Military and Family Readiness Center provides some preparedness, education, information for you if you're in an OCONUS or overseas location. When we look at our EFA plan, Emergency Family Assistance Plan, which is incorporated into the Installation Emergency Management Plan, it's real specific to the region. There may be some threats or some considerations that need to be discussed and to be communicated that may be specific to where you're located. We know that in some of our, like in the PACAF Pacific Air Force region, you may have tsunami considerations or other events that may not occur from a stateside location. So one of the things that would be beneficial to you is that our centers always provide a component of what we do is providing education and information. Doing that education events, we invite family members to attend those events. And we definitely need our KSLs to please be able to come to those events so you can get that information and be able to communicate it to the military community for us. But the family members are highly recommended and invited to those events because we want you to be just as prepared as the service member. So just keep that in mind. Also, kits, I know the chief talked about that yesterday also. But when we're looking at NEO kits or even just kits for if a disaster or crisis occur, you need to be able, just like with us within our community or our profession, we exercise continuously. We're reevaluating plans, we're exercising those plans, we're making sure all those individuals that are part of that are aware of their responsibility. So you need to do that also, and we need to communicate that to our families that know what your plan is if a significant event do occur that alter your life or cause significant stress in your life due to a severe event or all hazard events, as we call it, crisis, disaster, emergency, or evacuation. Practice that. We recommend practicing it for about maybe a year or annually, but you can also do that maybe twice a year. Have your if you have school age kids, understand what will occur in case that you would have to evacuate. What there's school liaison officers that you can communicate with, school administrators that have plans that know what responsibilities and capabilities during a significant event that may cause you to have to respond or evacuate to a crisis or evacuation. So that's one of the things that I kind of would like to foot stomp with the chief. I know he said it all there, but just remember that when we do our preparedness communications and education events, please attend those, and we'll be make sure that you get the information you need to be resilient during those events.
Thank you, Chief and Mr. Hudson. I'm going to ask a question from one of the questions that were sent in ahead of time, and this is for Chaplain Wharf, and it kind of aligns with the topic that you brought up earlier about suicide prevention. Is there anything to help spouses notice and know when to talk to someone about their spouse and suicidal thoughts?
Great question. So on the Air Force Resiliency website, so that's www.resilience.af.mil, and we'll drop it in the chat. SG just released a phenomenal mental health playbook. I highly recommend, as a KSL, you grab it. I think it's on page 3 of the playbook. They put together a really phenomenal stress index. It's kind of like a one-page kind of info sheet where you can kind of do an assessment of yourself or someone else to say, hey, am I in kind of the green or am I in the critical zone? And what's phenomenal about the actual graph that they've developed is it not only kind of gives you some like sensors, some things that you should be thinking about or seeing in not only yourself, but also below it in each category, it has identified support resources connected to that very issue. And so I think a lot of times we see these kinds of things, and we get thrown so many different products our way. But for me, I have that up at kind of on the wall in my office as a great reminder. And that's a brand new resource that SG just produced. Colonel Azad and his team just released it on the website. You can find it there. Just click on it. I think it's an actual highlighted story. So those are kind of things that I think a lot of times you and I just need some education on. And so those types of tools and resources can help us with that as well. Love to answer more. It's called the Mental Health Playbook. And I can share the link in the chat so you guys can kind of get quick access to it. It's on the public side. You can download it, but I highly encourage you to go through that from the mental health kind of suicide prevention perspective. Great question.
Excellent. Thank you. I do have a question that was sent in ahead of time, and we have on the line with us Ms. Denise Blount from AFPC, who is the program manager for the Commander's Key Support Program. And I'm going to direct this question to Mrs. Blount. How much of a role do KSLs have when crisis or emergency events arise, and how do KSL support the commander without overstepping?
Good morning, everyone. Or actually, not good morning for a lot of you, right? Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're coming from. So I just want to start by saying the purpose of the Key Support Program is to enhance family and unit readiness, right? Through support, education, information, and referrals. Now, a Key Spouse Liaison, I say Key Spouse. I have not gotten used to that yet. So our Key Support Liaison roles, they'll vary. Depending on the unit or the squadron's needs, and of course the ops tempo, right? So it's going to vary by unit or squadron. It's really imperative that as a key support liaison, you meet with your commander or your first sergeant to find out what their expectations are, what your roles and responsibilities will be, and how you will best be able to support. Because it's going to look different at every installation, every unit, every squadron, because the needs are different in every area. So let me just foot stomp again. It's just really imperative that you definitely talk to your commander, your first sergeant, because roles and expectations are going to vary across the board. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blount. I also have another question sent in ahead of time. I'm going to extend this to the entire panel, whoever wants to jump in and answer. Is there an emergency guide or checklist that can be handed out for families for a go bag?
Yes, if you look, there's and I can send a link or post a link. There's I know ready.gov, there's even FEMA, Red Cross that have recommended items for go bags or for kits, disaster kits, and each one is kind of it's similar in nature, basically, telling you everything from batteries to prescription medication to those other items, depending on what you feel that will be needed for a particular disaster. But one of the things is that if you were to go, and I know at the beginning of here they had the ready.gov URL or a link for most of you to use. There are also some disaster preparedness checklists that those sites provide for you. And within our AFPC crisis support website, we have some of those DoD preparedness checklists or documents, and from a Air Force, from emergency management, for the Air Force emergency management disaster preparedness document is posted there. So we'll make sure that you get those, because it'll be pretty important for you to utilize that in building a pretty good kit that you can not only have postured or ready in case an event occur, but that you can familiarize your family with the use of it and what's in it. Chief, over to you.
Hey, thank you, good sir. That was a great introduction to it. When we talk about that website, the beready.af.mil, It is definitely connected, just as he mentioned there with the ready.gov site. So a lot of the things in there as far as checklists they're downloadable, and you can tailor those based on your own family's needs. You can also do that in the Be Ready app that we spoke about earlier. So inside that, you can click certain things that you have done or certain things that conditions that may apply to you. Whether or not you're in a tsunami zone or whether or not you're in an earthquake zone. Not everybody may need a volcano checklist, for example, but if you're in Japan, probably pretty important. So a lot of the places are tailored based on your location. You can check the hazards that are specific to your area, and it'll automatically generate a checklist for you and your family right there, either in the app or on beready.af.mil. So those are a couple of good resources. Also, just like, making sure that the bad day is not the first time you're shaking hands, right? So if you go to the Installation Office of Emergency Management and talk to them, they would be thrilled to have you, come there in person, and then chat about the resources that they have as well. We have, through the Be Ready program, across the Air Force, a lot of like books and checklists and handouts and posters and pins and just all sorts of materials that you can have, coloring books even. So if you're teaching the kids how do you prepare for disasters, you can use that resource as well. There, inside the coloring book, there's a character. His name is Ready Rob, and kids can color him and also walk through how they would prepare, even if and share that with their friends as well. So a lot of good resources out there.
And Chief, let me caveat right quick, like also that you kind of reminded me of something. If you if there's not a scheduled disaster preparedness briefing from our military and family readiness centers, you can always request one. We have readiness NCOs or readiness staff that's in place currently, and they can either do an individual consult, they can do a virtual consult or class. And if you go to the military and family readiness center and request this information or education, they will be willing to pretty quickly provide you an update on what's available to you and give you some of this information that you can use. And it can be as a group or as an individual.
All right, thank you for that information. We have another question from the chat from James Purdy for Ms. Blount. Reading the Key Spouse Guide from 2022, is this the most up-to-date guidance we have? Should we push new KSLs to get the same required training that key spouses need based on the guide?
Okay, yes, so great question. So currently, what is out there now, the training, the 8-module training and the guides that we have are what is being used. So we've run into a few system errors with the few system issues, I should say, with the updated Commander's Key Support Liaison training. So that has not been released yet. And so the new guides, updated guides, have not been released yet. So we are continuing to use what is currently out now until the new training and guides are announced. And they're going to be announced at the same time to the field. So we were shooting for late summer. Now it looks like it may be early fall, maybe not, maybe still late summer, depending on how quick we can get those issues worked through. But everything is still status quo. We still use everything that we currently have out.
Thank you, Ms. Blount. The question is, what would make something an emergency or crisis? And that is going to be directed to Chaplain Wharf as well as Chief, again, because I think it can be answered from both a personal and operational level.
So I'll take a whack at it from the personal lane. So, I tend to look at what makes a crisis in the lanes of talking about pain. Okay. So a lot of times when we talk about pain management, right? And people say, man, I've got a bad back, or my knee hurts, or I have a hard time dealing with this pain in my body. Pain is kind of unique to the individual, right? It's hard to know what a different person's pain level is unless you're experiencing it. It's different from one person to another, right? Your ability to manage pain is different from another's. And so it is kind of with a crisis personally. Some things for some people would be a crisis that for you, it wouldn't be a crisis, maybe, right? So I think it's somewhat relative. It's unique to the individual from a personal, based on your background, your upbringing, your family of origin, your health. I mean, when you think about the kind of all the things that encompass the personal level of a crisis, I think those are unique to us, right? The family relationships, child challenges and child rearing challenges. I mean, so it's hard for me to give you a definition of what a crisis is specifically from the personal lane. I mean, I think we could go from the big rocks and talk about some of the major crises that I think all of us would recognize as a crisis, but I feel like it's also very individual. And it's hard for us to sit and say, oh, well, that's a crisis or that's not a crisis. And I think it's our tendency to do that sometimes. And so I always kind of lead with mercy triumphs judgment. And when I think about a crisis, I always meet people where they're at and take them from where they are. And if I can empathize with them, maybe because I've had a similar experience, then I'll empathize. But I always try to just support them the best I can. When you think about a individual crisis at the personal level, I think they're unique to each of us. Chief, it's over to you.
Well, that was an excellent thing. I was like, just pause for a moment to say, hey Siri, what's the difference between a crisis and emergency, right? But I think, yeah, like you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's different for everybody. Anything that disrupts your normal routine could be considered like, an emergency or crisis in some way or another. Whether it's something that happened even like, with a family pet who happens to end up being like, a part of the family, and then that's an emergency in its own right. From operationally, FEMA and through the incident command system, we do have categories for this. There are five types, and all the way down from a car crash, which is an emergency in its own right, where first responders, emergency responders will go and respond to that, maybe with one car, all the way up to an aircraft crash, which is usually a type 3, and then maybe something as large as a Hurricane Katrina, type event. So those are like, really visible and visceral examples of, where a typing of what's the difference between different stages and levels. One of the reasons for that is because every one of those different types are going to tether different resources and also how big the incident gets and how quickly. So if it's a type 3, for example, you may have an emergency operations center stand up for all type 3s, no matter what they are. And that might be as big as an aircraft crash or even like, an electrical outage that covers a large area. And we know that that's going to cause a lot of operational impacts. Or even something that we know, like the CrowdStrike, incident that was mentioned earlier today, that we know is going to cause either significant disruptions to personnel, or it's going to cause a lot of significant media attention. And we need to get ahead of that as well. So yeah, and a lot of that really kind of depends on, where you are, the conditions of it, and really the consequences, of those incidents and how we can best give the resources, apply the right amount of resources there to mitigate it and just make bad things better.
And if I could jump in also, as the chief was talking through those scenarios, which just made me trigger, as he's talking about anywhere from a natural disaster to a crisis to even like an air show or casualty matter that just comes into play, of the immediacy of how, first, how are you, where are you, and then what do you need, and then how do we communicate that both to the survivor population but also to leadership, and then across the board to family members who are trying to connect with each other to know that they're okay, or if they're not okay, then how are we going to relay that big picture, sight picture, to our leaderships and senior leaders, but also at the base level, how are we getting that to the individual units, how do we recover from those issues, and then how are we communicating with the right people that all need to be notified and spoken with about their loved ones. Over.
And I'll jump in on that too. Thanks a lot, Brian. Good input. I see that AFPAS experience is coming forth, so appreciate that. But yes, one of the things that we look at also is, and would like for you to be aware of those local declarations, or even at the for the federal release of funds. I know you may have government making declarations, emergency declarations, or disaster, and all the way up to POTUS, or the President of the United States. that release certain federal funds that may be available to help you. But just keep that in mind and be aware of those when you see that there's a disaster been declared in your area. But I know from you as an individual, when we have those significant events, anything that kind of alter your your lifestyle, put you in dire straits. We need to be able to you need to be able to communicate that. A crisis to one individual may not be to another, depending on their resilience, levels or their preparedness for the particular event. So just communicate your need. Make sure that the right helping agency is contacted to provide you a level of support that will help you recover. And we take that data, and your leadership is always wanting to be aware of those events. I mean, we do situation reports on what's affecting their military communities. They are making sure that resources are being provided to you to support you, and just make sure that you're reaching out to get the help that's needed. And be aware, look at those social media platforms, because a lot of leadership doing any event, they're posting key data on those sites, on your Facebook pages, on those platforms that's going to help you to not only for situation awareness, but to get information that's going to help you and your family recover. So, but yeah, I kind of look at it, around not only you, but also from a federal perspective, like with the Stafford Act and other things that are out there, because I want to make sure that if there is a need for additional federal, state, local resources, that we are aware of it and getting that information to you. And especially if there's any financial assistance that is significant to that particular event, that you get that information so that you can supplement if you're uninsured or not insured and you need support to recover.
Thank you to all of our panelists for those excellent responses. We have a few more minutes for questions and answers. Do we have any more questions from the chat?
We do. We have two questions from the chat for Ms. Blount. The first question from Erica Clayton. Are commanders required/encouraged to provide KSLs with contact information for families?
Hi, everyone. So you caught me off mic on that one. I was reading the questions ahead and I saw that question and I was like, oh, I knew somebody was going to ask that question. So, but that is an amazing, that's the question we're all thinking, right? I mean, we all want to know that. So, I mean, and unfortunately, the answer is that's something that we've been working on for a really, really long time. Currently, it is, every installation does something a little different, right? We get legal reads. Some legal offices say that information can be given out. Some legal offices say that information cannot be given out. So that is still something that we are trying to get to be the same across the board. And that is something that we will continue to work on, because without that contact information, it's impossible for you to do your jobs, right? So that is something that we're going to continue to push forward with. So we hope to have you a really good answer in the very near future, and we hope that everybody will be doing the same in the very near future. So more to come on that. I do appreciate the question. You know, when I see that question, I'm just like, oh my goodness, I wish I had a really good answer for that. But more to come on that.
Thank you. And the second question.
I'll take a stab at that as well, because I think there's some operational tethers to that, that may make sense as well. So the unit emergency preparedness coordinators that we talk about, like just on the operational side, we have what's called calm out recall. So you don't have any communications, and there's a roster of folks that are assigned to that unit, and we need to be able to communicate with them, find them, and also let them know that something has happened. Either we need them, to be a part of the response for that, or we just need to make sure that they're okay and haven't been impacted by that disaster. So as a part of that calm out recall roster, we also have, maps to be able to physically go to everyone's, home and just knock on the door and say hey, are you okay? Is everything all right? Do you need anything from us? Or, hey, we need you to be at this operations center or this control center somewhere, or, we need you to be on post because there's a recall. So a part of that, that is a, whether it's operational, but that is a connection to, commanders having, at least something that requires them to be able to communicate with everybody that's in their unit.
Thank you for that. And another question for Ms. Blount from Nicolette Bell. How does the KSL mentor training actually differ from the initial KSL training?
So right now we don't have an updated one. We are working on updating that. So the big thing that we want to focus on, because I know in the past, a lot of mentors looked, a lot of key support liaisons, key support mentors. A lot of people see mentors as supervisors. So what we're working on with the new training is ensuring that that is not the case. Mentors are not meant to be supervisors. So we're focusing a lot on advising, actually mentoring, but not actually being a supervisor. So we are updating that, hope to have that out soon. And so it really is just going to stress the point of it's a non-supervisory role. It's more of an advisory role, a mentoring role, a supportive role. So that is the way that it's going to look in the very near future.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And we have a question from Jessica McCutcheon. How important is social media in the event of an emergency or crisis?
I'd like to jump in on that one too, if I could, but social media, can have a lot of great benefits when it comes to emergencies or disasters, especially widespread ones. And here's one of the reasons why. Cell towers. It is likely that depending on the size of that disaster, that the cell service is going to drop. You may not be able to get connected to family members. The phones may be disrupted, but generally what happens is data services are still operational and, viable. So you can send messages, through social media or find out what's going on through social media, especially pages, that are directly tied to your local area, whether that's a county or parish emergency management office. Connected to them, they get some, some data about what's happening, official data, or like, the county sheriff, they often put out a lot of good information as well. Fire departments that are, to the, tied to your local community, or even like, official pages from the Air Force, whether that's like the Air Force Emergency Management Facebook site, or Instagram site. We also have like, LinkedIn page as well, but every aspect of like, every one of those different touch points to be able to just make sure that you're getting information from official sources. I'll say that because there's a lot of mis and disinformation out there. Some nefarious actors like to use social media to be able to, mislead people into believing that, something, is afoot that may not be, or even to misdirect where those resources are if you need them. Here's a quick example. So if there is a large flood in the area that you're in, and somebody maybe the official page is telling you where to pick up sandbags, and you can get that, from, let's say, a parish emergency management office. I'm going to pick up sandbags over in this location. And then there's other people that might get on that page or like, might be talking and say, no, they're out of resources. But if you didn't get that from the official source, then you might be dealing with a troll. So you have to make sure that at least you're vetting the information that you're getting. You're tying yourself to those official sources of information as best you can so that you can, react appropriately.
And Chief, also, I'd like to just jump in and kind of caveat. I know even when we establish an emergency family assistance center, we have a public affairs officer or representative there to make sure that we're taking data in, seeing what is relevant to the event and to the community that needs assistance. But just remember that your official sources of information on your installation, where your commanders and your public affairs have official releases of information, because just like what the chief said, there may be some data or information out there that may not be pretty beneficial to you. One of the functions that we have when we look at information and referral, a function within the Military and Family Readiness Center is gathering information, resources, support that's available to you, and kind of disseminating that to the military community during an event. They're working with some of those agencies that have provided real-time current information on what's available and their capability. They're working with some of our major commands and higher headquarters to get information on what's available, and those federal, local, state resources, and that i.e. shelters, and some of the information that the chief was just saying, and they gather that and make sure that's available to you. So kind of establish your source of information, make sure it's a reliable source, and that will probably save you a lot of time, just like the chief said, in going to a location or something that is that's going to just kind of prevent you from recovering in a good amount of time. Example is like with TRICARE. We always get information on doing a particular disaster with TRICARE. Puts out a bulletin to say that information on prescriptions or a primary care where you can go and get support where they waiver certain requirements within their function. So just remember, we're gathering information. We're trying to get it out to you and trying to get through all of that for you, so you not be misled or get any misinformation. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you. And we have one more question from the chat before we go to break from Dorothy Lindstrom. Has any base discussed an emergency situation regarding civil unrest? Are there plans not just for members who live on base, but for those who have had to live off base?
I'll start on that. I know one of the things now when we talk about civil unrest, when we look at, I know I talked about Emergency Family Assistance Center, when we have an actual activation where to respond to an event, and also we talked about AFPAS and needs assessment. But during the civil unrest evacuations, one of our functions is working with Department of State, Defense Attaché Service, Defense Intelligence Agencies, because we have a lot of onesies and twosies families that evacuate due to civil unrest. I mean, that is continuous. It could be a mass evacuation, or it could just be a few individuals due to a Department of State ordered departure or authorized departure. And what we do is we're establishing contact with the field liaison officer, with DOS or Defense Intelligence Agency. We're getting that information. I know I work with Ms. Goodman and her team because there's an accountability aspect to that. And we're assigning, once the evacuation occur, we are conducting outreach with that evacuee. We're telling them for providing support for onward travel to all the way up to safe haven or displaced location. And that could be in country, or that could be stateside, where they determine where their displaced location or safe haven location will be. The Department of State and those other agencies, the Defense Attaché Services, they're establishing contact with their evacuees and providing benefits and other information too, and they relaying that to us also. When we look at families that potentially may have to evacuate for civil unrest, or even if it's a limited evacuation order by a commander, not all the way up to the Department of State, that once we know that there's maybe something that may cause an evacuation of some type, we're reaching out to family members to make sure that that they can communicate needs to us. We letting them know our capability to provide support, and if needed, we are assigning case managers to provide that support to them.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson, for that answer. Before we end our panel discussion, I want to give each of our panelists the opportunity to give final remarks, or if you want to share recent initiatives or perhaps some resources that were not already discussed during our time today. However you would like to use your last 60 seconds, I'm going to ask each of you to give final remarks. And this time we'll go in reverse and start with you, Mr. Angel.
Okay, again, thank you very much for tuning in and for the great questions and discussions and the answers from the panel. Again, we appreciate what you do and what you're going to do as you go forward with this role. I mentioned in the chat, but to reiterate, if you need to look up any information, Military One Source, the link is in the chat, and it goes right to the casualty link, and then all the services have their contact phone numbers there for you. Additionally, for our service members, AFPC Air Force Personnel Center sends out a happy birthday message annually. On their birthday, says happy birthday. Oh, by the way, it's got links in that email that says update your AFPAS, update your VRED, update your DEERS, update your SOs. So those links are given to the military members on their birthdays every year, but there's still actions that have to go, of course, follow on with that from the family members. Again, Blue Suiters would always take that information home and how that can work. And then on top of that, because all these things are always electronic in the IT world, information technology that we use, it is not waiting until the crisis to not know where this important paperwork is. So where's the will? Where's the medical information? Where's your VRED, a hard copy of that? Where's a copy of the SODS elections? And then having that connectedness and that communication with each other that says, the service member, while they're with us, they can say, these are my intentions. This is who I'd like to receive this benefit. This is who I want to be the person for my pad. These are the beneficiaries as I've named them in my different documentation, so that you know what their intentions were while they're with us and while they were alive or not a casualty. So just taking that with you as a takeaway. And again, thank you for all that you're going to do for us as a force multiplier. We appreciate you each and every day. Take care now. And I'll yield my time to Ms. Goodman, the young lady from Texas. Over.
Hi, thanks, Brian. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be here with you this morning. Again, I piggyback on Brian. Great questions. I know you guys received a lot of information this morning. So if you have anything else for me, I put my email address in the chat, and I put that it is for AFPAS. Also wanted to let you know that I did put in the chat too that every event is not an AFPAS event. I want you guys to know that only the installation commander, the MAGCOM, and HAF can request an event. So if that event is requested, then we will initiate an event on their behalf, such as Hurricane Beryl that went through Houston. And we know that there were millions without power there, but it was not an AFPAS event because we did not get a request for one. I wish that we did have the capability to start an event that we feel necessary at AFPC, but that is out of our hands. We only create and build. So, but again, I want to thank you guys for the questions. Thank you for being a part of this panel.
Thank you, Ms. Goodman. Mr. Hudson?
Thank you. Again, I appreciate you allowing us to be able to talk with you today. Hopefully, we're able to get some good information to you as far as disaster preparedness and talk to you a little bit about what our responsibilities. I know with us in EFA, Emergency Family Assistance, where we are basically our response is to be a central point for delivery of services and support to you following an all hazard event. Basically to support and address your practical and emotional needs after a significant event. What I need your support on, and I'd like to communicate that to all the KSLs that we talk to is just remember the capability of the Military and Family Readiness Centers. Connect with the readiness staff, get some information and education from them on some of the services and capabilities that we have so you can help us communicate that to your military community. Be an advocate for AFPAS, an advocate for AFPAS needs assessments to help them to use it and to identify urgent needs during a significant event. And also encourage those help-seeking behaviors to, when we have an EFAC, Emergency Family Assistance Center activation, that they are actually not thinking that they're on an island and that there's no helping agency out there to provide them a level of support. And also promote efforts that help your community respond or recover post-event or post-disaster. Because like I stated before, you are pretty important to us. In what we do, we consider you a mission partner, and we appreciate what you do for us.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Chaplain Lieutenant Colonel Worf.
Well, it's been great to be with you all. Thanks again for just hanging in there. It's been phenomenal to just have lots of great questions. It's been an honor to be on the panel with our panel expertise. I just leave you with a couple of thoughts to think of as I shared in the very beginning, right? One of our greatest sources of strength to meet the unique challenges of military life is our connection to others. And so I just encourage you to kind of continue to think about ways that you can foster a healthy culture and connection and care across your community. You're a key part of your commander's staff within the unit to really get after quality of life issues. The last thing I'm going to keep foot stomping that is to go onto the resiliency.af.mil website, click on resilience, and you're going to find a phenomenal one-page info sheet on the spectrum of resilience. And the reason I put you to that resource is it kind of identifies 5 key areas that you can think about, from how do you be ready and what are the support elements that are there for you. So like from yourself, your family, friends, your social peer network, all the support entities that are there, your clinical and mental health and medical health. It's a great short little slide to talk about. Keep it in your pocket. It'll help you maybe communicate effectively about how you can champion integrated resilience across the spectrum of resilience. And so it's been phenomenal to be with you. Wish you all the best, and keep being awesome at what you do and supporting our Airman Guardian families. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaplain Moore. Chief Jameson?
All right. So yeah, just echoing what a lot of the others have said is just gratitude. Thank you for being a part of this and being a part of the network that we have. And just kind of like, reiterate that bad day shouldn't be the first time that you're shaking hands, right? So get out and actually meet up with some of the emergency and first responders that are in your community. And a good opportunity to do that is the first Tuesday in August. That's the National Night Out. So that is a time where all emergency first responders, your emergency managers, explosive ordnance disposal, fire emergency services, emergency medical services, everybody will be out setting up at a location, for you to be able to maybe even get on, bring the family, bring the kids, to get into fire trucks, to check out, what an ambulance looks like, maybe even get inside the friendly part of a police car. So there's lots of different, opportunities there. And as well as September is National Preparedness Month. And so emergency managers will be out in force in front of like the exchanges or commissaries out there, with materials. So please link up with them and just shake hands and maybe even get a tour of the Emergency Operations Center. You can talk to them about that as well. And then just one other thing. A lot of people may say, hey, man, so Sean, you've been doing this for a couple of decades. What do you and your family do, to stay safe? How do you get after it? And what my wife has made up for us is I call it a grid down day. We do this twice a year, and we've been doing it for about 17 years now. So we have a time where we just shut off all the water, electricity in the house. We build an event that we're going to exercise that day, and we just use our disaster kit. We use those as opportunities to check and make sure that any medications we have in there are good to go. The food in there is good to go. If we have batteries, we make sure that that's working. Our weather radios that we have, or walkie-talkies, we make sure that those are all still working. And it's fun, right? So we end up going, having some objective that we do that day, and the kids enjoy it as well. So it's just a fun way to, just really practice emergency management, emergency preparedness, make sure that your kits are up to date, and just consistently have a mindset of being ready before that bad day comes. But again, thank you for your partnership in this. I know that we can't do any of this without your support, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you all so much. Audience, if we could please give a Zoom round of applause for our panel. This has truly been amazing. Thank you all for your insights and your resources and your tips and tricks that you provided for us all today. I also want to thank Ms. Blount from AFPC. And then finally, I want to thank you, the audience, because I think you all have really been a sixth panel member as you've shared your experiences and your tips in the chat with one another. It has all been invaluable. As we prepare to bring today's engagement to a close, I want to thank you again, all of our panel members, for educating us on the importance of updating our personal information for accountability and ensuring our beneficiaries are correct, letting us know how to complete notifications and get resources from military and family readiness centers in case of evacuations, how to create family plans, and how to be mentally and spiritually prepared for a crisis. With that, I'm now going to turn it over to Lieutenant Colonel Catherine Roberts, Deputy Chief of the Airmen and Family Care Division, for our closing remarks. Colonel Roberts.
Thank you, Letitia, and thank you, panelists. It is always great to hear from subject matter experts, and today you provided a wealth of knowledge and insight. I am a two-time graduated squadron commander and a military spouse, and I can tell you from personal experience that no matter where we are in our careers, our families and loved ones are always our top priority. The readiness of our airmen and guardians depends on the readiness of our families. We can never be too prepared for emergency or crisis situations. I appreciate all the organizations represented here today and those you saw on the resource slide for their role in ensuring emergency preparedness and crisis management. To our key support liaisons, thank you for what you do for our airmen and guardians and their families. Mission readiness is family readiness, and each of you play a vital role in supporting your commanders as they not only communicate that readiness message to the families assigned to their unit, but also ensure that that message is put into action every day. Thank you for your very active participation in the chat. You've asked several questions about your role in emergencies and expectations of you. Please talk with your commanders about their expectations of you and find out how you can help them. Thank you, Mrs. Alvin, for being here with us today. Your presence demonstrates the importance you place on this program and the value of the time we've spent this morning, afternoon, or evening. Thank you all for taking part in this engagement. Our team at headquarters, as well as our partners at the Air Force Personnel Center, look forward to continuing to engage with you on topics that can aid you in your role as you support your unit. Please continue to provide us feedback on how we can make these engagements better and targeted to your needs.
Thank you, Colonel Roberts, and thank you again, all of you. Thank you to all of you again for joining us today. That concludes today's events. Please again bookmark the AFPC Commanders Key Support Program webpage and be on the lookout for upcoming engagement events. Finally, we want your feedback. A QR code should now be showing on your screen. There's also a link in the chat. Please answer the questions and provide us feedback on this session and what you would like to see in future engagement events.
Lieutenant Colonel Kriya.
Yes, Mr. Larry.
I just want to jump in after all the closures and all the comments and say, wow, what a remarkable kickoff for an overall key support liaison event. From start to finish, from all the things that you walked through, Colonel Roberts' closure, Ms. Alvin, just the whole event. I really enjoyed the panel. Each of you did just an amazing job. And thanks to every KSL out there and the entire team of planners, for you who as KSL have stepped in and raised your hand and say, I can contribute. I can offer something. I can help us to connect, be strong, go forward, prepare for the emergency, share thoughts, information, and make my unit stronger. Thank you. Thank you. Just a remarkable event. Way to get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Larry. And that was Mr. Larry, Director of Air Force Services. Again, thank you all for attending and have a great day.